Hello, hello. I'm going to bore you to death with fascism right before you go to lunch, so we're going to have some fun today. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Geraldine, for the amazing introduction. I wrote this book, that's why I'm here. It is in English called Together, but my German editor who is here thought that Wille und Würde would be a better title because it's more Nietzschean and Germans would take me seriously. A few years ago, I wrote this book called How to Lose a Country. I laid out 7 steps from democracy to dictatorship. I was on the stage giving a big talk saying that I'm coming from Turkey, but this whole political craziness is not specific to Turkey. It will come to Europe. It will haunt the Western democracies as well. Don't trust in your democracy. Don't have too much confidence in your democracy. Blah, blah, blah. I was going around the world, actually, saying that fascism is on the rise, and we have to do something about it. And I laid out 7 steps, which were already also global patterns of right-wing populism and new fascism. So I was like Cassandra, going around telling everybody that it will come to them, and eventually, actually, it happened in France. Nobody would think that Le Pen would be so, powerful. In the United States, nobody would think that Capitol Hill will be invaded by bizarre people. And in Germany, which is the most interesting country when you speak of fascism, you are also talking about fascism today. It is very interesting to say this word in this country, because Germans get a little bit jealous with this word. They go like, no, 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 you cannot use that word. We know what that word is. So it's not easy to speak about fascism. Just hold your horses. But then I think we shouldn't wait for fascism to be fully formed and to seize the power. Because when it's too late, as you already very well know, there's nothing to be done. But it's not only fascism that we are facing today. We are also facing this incomprehensible evil on several levels. One of them is climate change. It is almost impossible to understand that this planet is going to be over and we will become ultimately homeless. This is too much for human mind. We also face the incomprehensible evil when refugees are pushed back to sea to their death. This is too much to understand for a normal person. And it is also incomprehensible that this system, which we call capitalism, is doing all these things to us, at least most of them, and we cannot change it. We are so used to living in this capitalist world, and it's almost a planet called capitalism, we cannot even start to imagine that we can actually create another system. So we are constantly paralyzed with evil situations, with incomprehensible situations all the time. We are afraid, we are angry, we feel helpless, we feel inconsequential, and we feel very, very lonely in this planet, although we are many. So, right-wing populism or new fascism is mobilizing these feelings, these emotions, and they are creating political reality out of it. They are mobilizing anger, they are mobilizing the organized ignorance, and they are coming to power by only managing the politics of emotions. Remember, Trump was elected because of those emotions. Anger, hatred, whatever, you can make a big list out of it. Brexit happened because of emotions, a broken pride of a nation, and so on. Turkey is still being run by a person who has dictatorial intentions and ways to run the country. And it's all because of emotions, because this guy gives them the feeling of being somebody and being a part of a greater good. And many right-wing populists and fascist leaders do the exact same thing. They are actually manipulating or managing or directing all these accumulated emotions into creating out of them a political reality. So what do? I mean, like when I say we, I feel quite comfortable. Since you are here, since we are in Berlin, since you came to this festival, I want to assume that you also need a we. You're also afraid of having a we, but that's another thing. What are we doing with these emotions? What do the progressives do with these emotions? We think that the facts, the truth, will convince people. But then, unfortunately, it does not, right? Neither of them really work. I'm not saying that we should forget about the facts and the truth, but we should also think about the politics of emotions. That is why I wrote this book. Because after fascism, there is a moment in a nation's or a country's or a people's life that all is lost. Fascism is not only a political problem, it is also a moral failure, a total moral collapse, in fact. So when all is lost, and when we have all these emotions, these quite elusive and explosive emotions, and if we have to create a new political reality which is more humane, which is more equal, which is more just, we have to face the reality that we have to have a say, we have to have a word about these emotions of the masses. So I made an attempt to create a new political vocabulary or political emotional vocabulary for 21st century humans, for exactly the people who are here today. Wille and Woede, together, a manifesto against the heartless world, came from that idea. I took concepts such as dignity, anger, fear, love, and so on and so forth. These concepts, some of them at least, might feel a little bit naive to you, especially love part. But when all is lost, when we have to recreate the entire moral consensuses and political consensuses from the scratch, we need to go back to those old words, and we need to give them a new meaning. So that is why I'm here, and that's why I wrote the book, and now Geraldine and I will talk in detail. But the bottom line of this book is, I don't believe in you. You don't believe in me. But for any political action today, we have to come together. And in order to come together, we have to choose to believe in ourselves. At this point in time, when we are in doubt about the very essence of the humankind, every day we ask ourselves, is human evil? Do they worth rescuing? Do they worth political action? That is why, and that is a very dangerous question, and that's why I'm here to tell you that I choose to believe in you, and please choose to believe in me. And I'll tell you more with Geraldine at the table.
Thank you so much, Ita. Of course, the time doesn't do justice to all the great concepts that you have packed into this book. And just a reminder, I will just be checking my phone casually on the side to see if you're sending me questions as well. So let's start unraveling a little bit. You know, it just got me that perhaps one differentiation could be that when people speak about togetherness coming from a fascist context, it's a very exclusive term. So you would concentrate on being together only with those who agree with you and those who you would see as befitting to your society, whereas we want to see togetherness as a very inclusive term and something that we understand on the local as well as on a more abstract and global level. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think we lost that understanding of togetherness, especially after the American invasion in Iraq. Mm-hmm. Because that was, I don't know if you remember, I see many people here from my generation, so they would. That was the last time, actually, we came together globally to say no to war. And the international organizations, national powers, and everybody who runs this world told us very openly that you don't count. I mean, like, you might have, poured to the streets of the world on the entire planet, said no to war, but then we don't give a shit about you. So since then, I think we are in doubt about coming together. Of course, there is the Occupy movement, there is Black Lives Matter, there is, several Tahrir, Gezi uprising, and several other things. But I think somewhere deep inside us, we started to think that we don't count anymore. Democracy is not for us anymore. Democracy is now a theatrics of itself, and the decisions are made without us.
Yeah, I mean, I was really contemplating this, preparing for our session, just thinking about when did we ever have this state in society, or is this like a elusive concept that we wish for, but in fact has never really truly taken hold? I mean, I think that's why it's so interesting to hear your perspective on it, because of course, from the perspective of having grown up in a country torn by the Second World War and Cold War, and looking at the globe very much from this perspective, togetherness perhaps existed in this sort of romanticized idea on the local level, but did it ever really exist in a more global sense?
There are moments of togetherness. It is not a, this eternal concept, but those moments of togetherness that people live throughout Black Lives Matter, for instance, or through these uprisings that I mentioned earlier, those were, and they still are, the miniature models of the life of togetherness we are, looking forward to.
Yeah.
But then it is not possible with this moral collapse due to the system that we come together in such carnivalesque or such sustainable manner. But there are moments of togetherness, despite the fact that these moments of togetherness have been attacked by police and state power. Those moments of togetherness, I think, should be leading the way.
Yeah, and especially to or not really regain, but to keep the sense of hope and refueling hope from perhaps one movement to the next. That's perhaps an essence also of this togetherness. And I think there are so many examples now where you have the sense that people are losing that sense of hope. And one example for me was when I was listening to women's rights activists speaking about the overturning of the, I know this is a very US-specific example now, but the Wade and Roe verdict, so basically making abortion illegal in the US. And I think what was really striking in this example was the long haul of the right-wing power that, ever since this Supreme Court verdict was made, basically made a plan to overturn it. So decades of strategic work gone in to make sure the world is shaped the way they want to see it. And it's working. And this is so scary to see how the power grip of fascism and of the right wing is so strong, and the long-term energy they have to make sure that their view of the world overrules ours. So in light of that and that long-haul energy, how can we keep maintaining our energy to move against it?
First of all, I think we should get rid of the word hope. Because, I've been giving these speeches in such, for such audiences. And everybody, when I speak, because I depress them enough, at the end of the day, they ask me, so where is hope? And I ask them back, like, what would you do differently if I say to you that there is no hope? Or what will you do differently tomorrow if I tell you that there is hope? So this question is first inconsequential to me. Second, asking for hope and looking for hope turns congregations like us to a flock of sheep. We don't need hope. And hope is too fragile for these times as well. And also, if you ask for hope, there are so many, hope advertisements all around. Go to, take a walk on any commercial street in Europe, And you'll see all these advertisements. Buy this T-shirt and be the hope. Use this nylon bag, this cotton bag, and change the world. Hope has become a commodity already. The system is trying to make us believe that it can change itself without our contribution, with this commodification of hope. We don't need hope. What we need is faith. And we didn't lose hope, actually. What we lost is the faith in ourselves and in each other. And that is the biggest and the most dangerous consequence of fascism. Fascism is not about uniforms and boots. It's about this moral collapse that makes you think that we cannot do anything. They are too powerful. We are nothing.
You can applaud. Please applaud. I thought you were going to say we need a strategy and not faith. So it's really interesting, because, of course, that can be an elusive concept too, or a concept that is very much based on, let's say, also the belief in something external. So I'm glad that you also said it's about having faith in oneself and seeing that as an internal concept. But don't we also need a strategy and a plan next to faith?
Absolutely. By the way, when I say faith, I don't mean religious faith. I think that's obvious. Yeah. Strategy. Very good point. As I told earlier, we are in this incomprehensible problems. Our situation is really hard. And we are in deep shit. Excuse my French. So, you will see people all around coming up with these strategies, coming up with ideas, and so on and so forth. But I do think that this is a time that brilliant idea that cannot save us. It is only through the collective action the ideas will come. Since 1980s, we have been used to this understanding, this perception. Understanding is a different thing. Action is a different thing. They are apart from each other. Journalists, academics, gurus are here. Activists are here. This is something that the system imposed on us. They are together. There is no understanding without action. Therefore, there is no solution. There is no strategy without the action. The strategy will come through the action, I think.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting what you said, and I had to think about just also relating it back to some of the other conversations taking place here. And I just had a conversation earlier over talking about multiple futures and how we need to democratize the concept of future.
Yeah.
And I think, fascism takes so many shapes and faces and sizes, and of course in the context that we speak in here, I love that you just said, we don't need the hero, we don't need we don't need your one future that you thought of, thank you, because that always makes me think of then we'll end up in Elon Musk's future, because he believes he knows better than the rest of us, but who wants that, right?
Well, he's better than most of us, he's very rich. He thinks that this planet is the cradle of humanity. And in his Netflix documentary, he says, it's time we leave the cradle and go to the stars. Obviously, not everybody is going to go, he says. Some of us will perish. And how normalized it is to think that now, and how we are not ashamed, how he's not ashamed of telling this. And I think that is the birthplace of fascism, the loss of shame. So we have to be careful about this, imagined futures and how actually they are related to this understanding of neoliberal perception of the world and how that is close to fascism, actually.
Yeah, fascism has no humility.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit more about this loss of moral consensus that you're speaking of and how it surfaces. And this is also something I was wondering of, because I was wondering if now, not in light of the Russian war in Ukraine, we're seeing a new phase of perhaps a moral consensus in society, pinpointing something that at least most people in most countries would presently agree is the evil and the aggressor, and coming together on the base of that. Do you see that as a momentum at the moment?
Well, this morning I was thinking, what if the United States didn't take in Adorno, Hannah Arendt, Marx Hockenheimer, and all the others just because they are German. Because there was war, and there was like hardcore fascism, there was an aggressor, and they could easily have thought that we don't want anything German at this point. Right now, Russia's incredibly outrageous invasion in Ukraine created something a little bit dangerous in Europe. I see in every cultural institution, in every artistic institution, in journalism, everywhere, the ousting, excommunication of Russians. Not Putin, not Putin supporters, but all Russians. I'm sure you also heard there were concerts cancelled because there was a Russian conductor. Or there were, contracts of academics cancelled because they were Russian.
And this happened
Russian
so quickly.
Students.
It was like, I know a lot of people working at Berlin universities, and the moment that university corporations ended were like very quickly in the beginning of the war from one day to the next.
They went after the oligarchs, but nobody goes after the Russian oligarchic money in European politics and in European cultural sphere, by the way. So, this togetherness, and then, by the way, I see all these demonstrations for solidarity for Ukraine, which I completely support. But then I was thinking, would it be so easy to do this if what we asked for wasn't in line with the mainstream politics?
Yeah.
So there's too much to think about that, and we constantly remind ourselves that this is not normal. And there are Russians who feel ashamed of what's happening. And despite it being very risky, they are saying this out loud. And I come from Turkey. I know the shame of being represented by a man who is the worst of that country. And I'm sure millions of Russians feel this shame very deeply.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit more of how to move on. This inclusive idea of togetherness, and how we perhaps start rebuilding faith in ourselves and between our communities to form these new allegiances that we've also been talking a lot about on the stage. This is, of course, you have a recipe here, step A to Z that we should be doing. But where do we start? Where do we start creating space to talk about these things, and where do we start building these ideas and putting them into practice?
There are other concepts in the book. One of them is friendship. And, throughout the history of philosophy, many people thought about friendship. Spinoza, Aristotle, Spinoza, Simone Weil, Hannah Arendt as well. So I am trying to rethink friendship as a political concept. Citizenship doesn't hold. Political membership, things are really collapsing. All the things that we have taken for granted are collapsing now. So can we imagine our political connections as friendships, or our friendships as political connections? There's a lot more about that in the book, but togetherness, I think, should be built on human love. When I say this, I cannot stop smiling because cynicist and sarcastic side of me thinks that, oh God, people will think I am me as this, heart, naive girl. But then if you are a leftist, if you are a progressive, you are already coming from love for humans. The moral core of socialism, the moral core of being progressive is human love. So we have to go back to that. I think we have to remind ourselves that we love humans, because it's not easy to love humans at this point in time, is it? On social media, you see the worst representations of our kind. You hear about the worst things on the news. So it's not easy to remember that we are better than this. So I think to renew the faith, we all have to make a moral decision. We have to choose to believe in ourselves and in each other.
I don't want to be too anecdotal about the very philosophical statement you just made, but I think it does tie in with what our opening speaker talked about yesterday too. We are trying to build allegiances between our communities, the digital, the climate movement, other civil rights and democratic movements. And within that, we really need to rekindle solidarity in our society and kindness in our society. We are so quick to point the finger and say, oh, you drove a car today, or you didn't switch off the light soon enough, or whatever it is that we're like penalizing each other with, instead of trying to find ways to support each other and be kind to each other. So yeah, I do think there's a tie-in there.
That is a defeatist thing, you know. Oh, you did this wrong, this, you know, virtue signaling thing. It is only done by defeated people, by people who feel themselves defeated. Because when we are winning, we love each other more, as you know. And by the way, this love, as well as joy of dignity, another concept in the book, joy, love, these concepts have been monopolized by religion for thousands of years. I think we have to get back them into the political realm, because we have to remind ourselves many things in order to survive this global mess.
Yeah, and that's a democratization process as well, because it's deinstitutionalizing those concepts and making them more accessible in a way.
Exactly.
That's something you're also doing with a project of yours called Letters from Now, in a sense. So I want to give you a couple of minutes to share with us what you do in that project. And also the book signing, you also have a workshop coming up in our program, which I'm sure many people listening to us now will want to attend. So tell me more about these things, please.
Okay, it's going to happen in Workshop F. We're going to be together with Matea Pavlitz, who I'm doing the project together. 1 year ago, we thought, how can we transform this book together into a digital sphere, into a digital universe? So we started this project. I'm writing letters every week, but the readers of these letters write me back. And then a community has been built. Now there are 5,000 people from all around the world, and we became actually friends. And also we do monthly Zoom meetings. It's called lettersfromnow.com. And we are discussing the topics in this book, but also what is happening in the world as well. It gives me joy. That's what I can say. And since I'm doing this project, it feels so weird to be on stage, because now I don't want to talk. I want to listen, and I want to talk together. Because that is 21st century. This is not 21st century anymore, right? There is no microphone. Everybody has a microphone. So what we do less in these times is to listen. So we are actually listening to each other, and we're building a new 21st century digital friendship.
That's so beautiful. Letter friendship. I think it's such a beautiful project. And if you want to become a part of this project, you can go to lettersfromnow.com and sign up and start writing letters with you. So at the workshop today, is that going to be a little bit of a joint sort of letter writing exercise?
We're going to tell about our journey, how we came up with this idea, how we developed it, and how it actually happened, because it's not easy to do this thing, because it's not like, you know, newsletter. You're expecting something as well. And by the way, everybody wants to dare tell their story. So it was very good to have this platform.
Was there something like, something that's, when you planned it and now when you implemented it, that was really surprising to you, or that turned out different?
It was. And I didn't know that it would give me so much. Because, you know, every month we're talking about a topic in the book, like anger. And then, you know, in this book, I say anger is commodified, so for political action, we need attention. But then these letter writers from around the world convince me that anger is politically still valid. So it is not only me telling things, but it is actually, they are telling me, and I'm learning from them as well. We are learning from each other, and that is pretty awesome.
Beautiful. I can only encourage you all to become a part of this. I'm definitely looking forward to being in correspondence on the topic of your books. And I really feel it's so beautiful, the passion that you have and that you bring to our stage. And I feel also like we sparked a bit of friendship in the preparation of this process. So I'd like to thank you so much for that and ask the audience to give you the biggest round of applause. Thanks so much for being with us this year again, Itje.
Thank you, Geraldine. Amazing woman. Thank you.